Imagine standing in the middle of a crowded airport. Your bags are packed, you are exhausted, and you look up at the departure board only to realize your flight into the Middle East isn't just delayed, it has been completely wiped from existence. Today, we are exposing the terrifying reality behind the sudden cancellation of 23,000 flights that is currently paralyzing the global aviation industry, and why the highly restricted, sudden test flights into Doha are hiding a much darker truth about global travel. Welcome to Travion IQ. The global aviation network is currently facing a crisis of unimaginable proportions, a total system shock that is sending massive ripple effects across the entire world. What is happening right now in the skies above the Middle East is not just a minor scheduling inconvenience, it is a full-scale operational meltdown. If you want to understand the hidden mechanics of the travel industry and stay miles ahead of the chaos that is stranding passengers globally, you need to subscribe to my channel Travion IQ right now, because we are the only ones breaking down the brutal reality of global transit. Let us dive directly into the epicenter of this massive disruption. Qatar Airways has just made a highly unusual and deeply concerning announcement regarding their operational status. After a period of complete lockdown and deafening silence on the runways, the airline declared that a select few flights will finally begin to operate, flying directly into Doha's Hamad International Airport starting this Saturday. On the surface, this sounds like a massive relief. It sounds like a return to normal operations and a beacon of hope for stranded travelers. But when you look closely at the fine print of this announcement, the reality is incredibly grim. These newly scheduled flights are absolutely not a return to business as usual. According to the strict mandates released by the airline, these specific flights are exclusively and strictly reserved only for passengers whose absolute final destination is Doha. If you were planning to use Hamad International Airport as a transit hub to connect to another part of the world, as millions of travelers do every single year, you are completely out of luck. Every single other scheduled flight, all the massive connection banks, and all the onward journeys remain indefinitely suspended. The entire hub-and-spoke model that the global aviation industry relies on has been entirely shattered. To truly understand the massive scale of this disaster, you have to look at the numbers. We are not talking about a few dozen delayed planes due to bad weather. Since this conflict began, an absolutely staggering 23,000 flights have been completely canceled across the Middle East. 23,000 commercial aircraft that were supposed to be in the sky, moving people and goods, are now sitting idle, creating a catastrophic logistical nightmare. The impact of these massive cancellations is not just localized to one region. It is being violently felt in every single corner of the globe. To see exactly how this is playing out on the ground, we have to look at one of the primary departure locations attempting to send these highly restricted flights to Doha. Paris's massive Charles de Gaulle Airport. The scene inside Charles de Gaulle is one of absolute confusion, high anxiety, and desperate travelers seeking answers that simply do not exist. There is currently what officials are calling a partial resumption of flights to and from Qatar, connecting to just 5 specific European destinations. The stated goal of this incredibly limited operation is to take people who were stranded inside Qatar, or those stranded outside who desperately need to return to Doha, and finally get them moving. But aviation insiders are making one thing incredibly clear. This is nowhere near a full resumption of standard commercial flying. In fact, within the industry, these highly restricted routes are being openly referred to as test flights. Think about the terrifying psychology of that phrase for a moment. Commercial aviation relies on absolute certainty, strict schedules, and guaranteed safety. Calling these operations test flights implies that the airlines are carefully testing the heavily disrupted system, cautiously probing the airspace to see whether they can actually fly safely in this highly volatile environment. The human toll of this massive system failure is heartbreaking. Tens of thousands of passengers are currently trapped in major international airports, facing impossible difficulties, skyrocketing unexpected costs, and a complete lack of clear communication. Consider the story of one specific passenger, currently stranded and completely overwhelmed by the cascading failures of the airline ticketing system. Her final intended destination is the beautiful city of Chiang Mai, Thailand. However, because of the massive disruptions, her carefully planned itinerary has completely fallen apart. She is currently facing a nightmare scenario that goes far beyond just sleeping on an uncomfortable airport bench. She is terrified about the hidden, rapidly multiplying financial costs of being stranded. For example, she has dogs waiting for her back home, staying in a specialized dog hotel. If she cannot miraculously find a way to make it back to Chiang Mai, those daily boarding costs are going to skyrocket, into an incredibly massive, unexpected bill. This is the hidden financial drain that the airlines never talk about. The compounding costs of real life continuing while you are trapped in a transit terminal. Her specific logistical nightmare perfectly highlights exactly why the current system is failing. She originally had a confirmed flight booked to Abu Dhabi with a connecting onward leg to Thailand. However, because of the 23,000 cancellations ripping through the system, her itinerary has been completely fractured. She currently only has a confirmed booking for the very first leg of her journey to Abu Dhabi. The airline has completely failed to book her on the second, highly critical leg of her flight to Chiang Mai. She is now trapped in a vicious cycle of absolute uncertainty. She and thousands of others are desperately trying to contact customer service, but it is an absolute nightmare to get through. The phone lines are completely jammed, the wait times are endless, and when you finally reach a human being, they have absolutely no answers to give. Her main, overwhelming concern is simply getting back home. She is terrified of boarding that first flight, only to get permanently stuck in Abu Dhabi. She has absolutely no idea if there is actually an onward flight waiting for her there, or if the airline will even be able to rebook her onto a completely different route back to Thailand. She is staring down the very real possibility of being stranded in a foreign country with no onward ticket and a rapidly draining bank account. If you want to ensure you are never caught completely off guard by these massive airline system failures, you absolutely must subscribe to my channel Travion IQ. We are building the smartest community of travelers on the internet, and subscribing ensures you receive the vital intelligence you need to navigate these global transit disasters. This specific passenger's nightmare is just a microscopic fraction of the overarching problem. Her story is echoing across the globe, perfectly representing the sheer panic and severe inconveniences that the passengers of those 23,000 canceled flights are currently enduring. But the chaos happening inside the passenger terminals is only half of the story. This conflict is currently causing a massive, incredibly destructive stir within the entire global aviation industry, an industry that, until just a few short years ago, was finally beginning to claw its way out of the devastating financial crisis caused by the COVID pandemic. Just as the airlines were finally stabilizing their balance sheets and returning to normal global capacity, this massive disruption has violently slammed the brakes on their recovery. And the financial shockwaves are extending far beyond passenger tickets. The entire economic foundation of flying is currently under extreme threat. We are seeing massive, unpredictable spikes in the prices of highly essential jet fuel. When 23,000 flights are canceled and global routes have to be drastically and suddenly altered, the demand and distribution of jet fuel becomes incredibly chaotic and incredibly expensive. Furthermore, the highly complex world of aviation insurance is being severely impacted. Insurance companies are carefully watching the test flights and the volatile region, and the premiums required to insure massive commercial aircraft flying anywhere near these zones are completely skyrocketing. Every single metric related to the cost of keeping an airline operational is currently flashing red. But the most critical, often completely overlooked aspect of this entire crisis is what is happening in the cargo holds beneath the passenger decks. This massive disruption is currently choking the global supply chain because everything related to global freight has been severely impacted. You have to understand the sheer geographical importance of the Middle East in the world of logistics. More than 20% of all global cargo physically passes through this specific region. 1/5 of the entire world's shipped goods rely on this airspace, remaining open and efficient. When 23,000 flights are canceled, that means thousands of tons of critical cargo are suddenly grounded. And right at the very center of this massive freight crisis is Qatar Airways. While most people know them for their luxurious passenger cabins, the reality is that Qatar Airways is an absolute titan in the world of global shipping. They are officially the second largest freight provider on the entire planet, trailing only behind the massive, dedicated shipping giant, FedEx. Think about the gravity of that statistic. A commercial passenger airline is moving so much global cargo that they rival FedEx. When an airline with that much logistical power is forced to suspend operations, cancel connection networks, and resort to incredibly limited test flights to just 5 European destinations, the global supply chain instantly breaks down. The medical supplies, the critical technology components, the international goods that keep the global economy moving, all of it is currently severely delayed or completely stopped. The fact that the second largest freight provider in the world is currently operating under such severe restrictions proves exactly how serious this situation truly is. So while there is a tiny, incredibly restricted partial resumption of flights from places like Paris Charles de Gaulle to Doha, nobody in the industry is celebrating just yet. It appears to everyone watching closely that there is simply a highly cautious test of the system currently underway to see whether they can physically and safely fly a metal tube through the sky in this environment. But a full, reliable, and unhindered resumption of global travel through this vital corridor is still a very, very far way away. The global aviation network is holding its breath, and millions of passengers are left staring at departure boards, wondering if they will ever make it home. If you found this deep dive into the hidden realities of the travel industry valuable, please hit that like button to help spread the word, and make absolutely sure you subscribe to Travion IQ right now so you are always the smartest traveler in the room. Stay safe, stay informed, and we will see you in the next Inside Report.